I want to talk about things you can do in 10 seconds, and then I want to talk about things you can do in 10 minutes. If I ask you, can you take an hour, some hands would go up. Eventually, the guilt hands would all go up. We'd probably get about a third of the group. If I ask you, how many of you could take 10 seconds to invest in somebody in a way that would change them relationally, how many would say yes? Okay? How many would say, okay, I could even take 10 minutes to do something like that? Yeah, so we have a lot greater possibility of participation if this is not something that we believe is going to cut into all of the other activities we know are significant and important. So 11 ways to be a blessing in 10 seconds or less. Ready? Yes? Okay, good. Number 1, to listen. Tell me about what's important to you. Tell me about what's important to you. One of the most stunning things when I train people in coaching skills, and I ask them to debrief with me what happened, is how many of them will say, I don't think I have ever really been listened to before. Just sitting there with the coach, listening to me was a little unnerving at first, they will say. Because I know people hear me because they respond, but I don't think I've had anybody ever really just sit and listen and ponder what I say. Very important, listening. Tell me about what's important to you. Second, to give a blessing. Has anyone ever told you that you have the gift of such and such? When as a younger dad, one of my daughters was 4 years of age. And we had a big thunderstorm, came over very suddenly. And I just heard this huge boom of thunder, and all of a sudden my 4-year-old daughter ran into the house. Terrified look on her face. She was about to cry. She's trying not to cry. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, these are her exact words, if I were thunder, I would be quieter so as not to frighten people. That's pretty deep for a 4-year-old. Because I realized she not only felt scared, she felt bad for thunder for being so mean. I said, honey, has anybody ever told you that you have the gift of mercy? I don't even know what that means, Papa. So we sat down on the couch and I explained to her the gift of mercy. Let me tell you something. The girl's 17 years of age now. Having a gift of mercy as a 17-year-old girl is not a popular gift. But it's one she's heard about her whole life. She understands how God made her, that He made her for a special purpose to be a certain kind of a blessing. Third is to affirm. Here's something about you that makes a great deal of difference to me. Here's something about you that makes a great deal of difference to me. In our house, we tell stories about the children when they were younger. We'll make special notations. Like one of my daughters is very, very quiet, but she's a prankster. It's unbelievable. The other day, I made pancakes, and I took the sugar out of the sugar bowl. And then I tasted one and was like, this is the worst pancake I've ever had. Then I looked in the sugar bowl. She had replaced all the sugar with salt. Okay, she would never say anything. 2 days ago, I came home. I had been gone for a couple of days. I was by myself in the house. I turned on a lamp in the living room, and there are cockroaches this big inside the lampshade. So I look in there, and they're little paper cockroaches. It must have taken hours to cut them out in the exact shape and taped inside the lampshade just to try to give me a heart attack. But it's fun, though. We tell those kinds of stories. You know, we know people take on different roles in the context of the family, and it's fun, but to be able to say, I'm so glad you're part of our family. She's not going to believe the size of this rubber spider that's going to be in her bed when I get home. Oh, it's going to be great. Fourth is to be transparent. I've made mistakes in my life, and I'd hate to see you go down that same path. That's a significant aspect of being an adult, is trying to find ways to explain what God has led us through and how we've seen His grace operating in our lives. Fifth is to pray. I'm not sure what to do either. Can I pray with you about it? Being able to pray with people over the telephone or pray with them in person, even staff members and children, especially important in the context of a school. To be able to put a hand on the shoulder of a child and say, this is really hard and I'm really sorry. Can I just pray with you right now? You know, I don't think I've ever had somebody say no. I don't think I've ever had somebody say no. I have had people say, well, look, I'm an atheist, but yeah, go ahead and pray for me, you know, just in case. Yes. Nobody ever says no, right? Because it's somebody offering a blessing. 6 is to encourage. I know it's tough, but I believe you can do it. The word encourage is one we should pay attention to. Encourage means to give courage to. It doesn't mean to say, this will be easy, or I will take the difficulty of this off of your shoulders. It means it is tough. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be walking alongside of you. 7th is to teach. May I share with you a scripture verse that has been important to me. I keep little index cards, and I will give these cards to jot notes to people on our staff or my own children or whatever. And very often when I find a scripture verse, I will text it, or I will take a picture of it in the Bible and text it to somebody, or I'll write it out on a card. My kids, a couple of my kids, save all the little cards I've ever given them, because it's remarkable to them to think that somebody, that God has been speaking to somebody else about them, and a scripture verse that would be an encouragement to them. It's really simple and something that anybody can do. What I do with the cards I send in the mail, by the way, is the cards are about this big, and then I write on them with a Sharpie. You can't really write more than 1 or 2 sentences. So it's not like you're asking somebody to sit down and pour out their heart for a long period of time. It's just really simple, fast, straightforward. Number 8 is to sponsor. I know someone who can help. Would you be interested in my putting you in touch with them? One of our summit instructors is quite honestly the most brilliant networker I have ever met. In fact, I think that's his primary role in life. He knows everybody, and he knows what people know, and he knows how the relationships all work. And so if any of us needs to know anything about anybody, this is the guy we call. Like, he's a human Rolodex. And, do you know so-and-so? Oh, of course. I served on a board with them, or, I traveled with Europe with them, or, I visited them in the White House. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Whoever it is, I haven't ever heard him say, I don't know that person. So he's a great person to connect. When we have a student who says, I'd like to go into this field or that field, he's one of the guys who always comes to mind to call. But that's the idea of sponsoring. Number 9 is to admonish. You are running a good race, the Apostle Paul asked. Who cut in on you? There may be a dozen different ways you can ask that. But the point is, the things that are besetting our students are things that beset them. It's not that there are genetic flaws in them, right? Except the flaw that occupies all of humanity, our sin nature that can only be redeemed by Christ. But we recognize we're coming alongside. I want to help you win. I want to help you win this race. All right. So I'm going to come alongside of you rather than be confrontational against you. Number 10, love. No matter what, I'll be here. No matter what, I'll be here. And then 11th is to walk alongside. Let's go together. As somebody involved at Summit with employees, somebody involved with the summer staff and training, we get 100 and some people who come to be part of our summer staff. As a dad, I tell you, if I'm at a loss for what to do, I just take people with me. That's what we do. All right, so those are things you can do relatively quickly. In just a few seconds, you can say something that can change somebody's life. You can express an orientation toward other people, toward people on your staff, toward students, and you can also encourage people on your team to do that as well.